The first market hall that was ever built in Newtown was situated in the middle of Broad Street between the Castle Vaults Hotel and what is now the National Westminster Bank. It was built in 1570 and was in use for over 280 years until it was demolished in 1852. Basically, Newtown had outgrown it, so they needed somewhere different. For many years the traders had to actually trade off of the street, which actually, when you look into the history, it looks like they weren't that worried about that because they weren't paying for their pitch and the town was growing all the time. It wasn't until Wasdale Briscoe came along and decided that they needed a new market hall that anybody actually had thought of building a large structure. Wasdale lived in London and used to come and visit occasionally, but basically left all the work to his agent here, who was called T. Sturkey. So in 1870 the building was completed, and in December 1870 it was actually opened, and it was opened to a whole lot of bell ringing, etc. It was funded, of course, by Wasdale Briscoe. The architect was Mr. David Walker. He was quite a famous architect who came from Liverpool, and the builder was a local builder who was Mr. Evan Williams of Llanidloes.
Not wishing to have the expense of running the building himself, Wasdale Briscoe immediately offered the market hall to Newtown Local Board, either for sale or rent. The asking price was £5,000. The board asked Evan Powell to do a valuation of the building. He came up with a remarkably precise figure of £3,868, 12 shillings and 8pence. Although Briscoe reduced his price, many in the town felt the amount that he was asking was still exorbitant. In addition to this, they were outraged that they had not been consulted over decisions such as where the market would be built, how large it would be, and how much it would cost.
So half of Newtown and the taxpayers of Newtown were saying, no, actually we'll stay out on the street. We're not paying an exorbitant price to move in and trade in the hall. The council, of course, was saying, oh, I think we should keep him happy. Let's buy the market hall. It ended up that they decided there had to be a vote. So the more I looked into this history, the more I looked through the papers, I realised, this was starting to build into something really quite exciting. And eventually, when they counted the votes, it came down in the favour of the council and that they would buy the market from Wasdale Briscoe. However, this wasn't the end of it. A lot of people weren't very happy, and the newspaper describes it as running through the streets, throwing stones, people in fear of their lives. It's very, very colourful language, but basically Newtown was rioting. So the local papers report that throughout 1871, dissension between Wasdale Briscoe and the Newtown Local Board regarding the future of the market hall led to a period of local unrest.
Many were not happy, and the scene that followed was one of chaos, with crowds shouting, fighting and running along the streets, hurling stones through windows and generally causing trouble. Eventually, after calling for additional policemen to calm the situation, the streets gradually began to empty. A decision, it seemed, had been made.
So eventually, although the town council had actually won the vote, they still thought that the price that Wasdale Briscoe was charging them was extortionate. So as you go through the history, you find letters flying backwards and forwards for years, trying to sort out how much they would pay. In the end, Wasdale got fed up with this and said, I will keep the market hall. All the oppositionists, the people that were against him, turned around and said, you will never make it pay, you just won't. 10 years down the line, looking through the papers, you find that it was actually a success, although there was an awful lot of trouble caused around the building of it, and many people said that the traders wouldn't move in and pay the rents. In the end, they did move in, and within about 2 years the market hall became very, very successful.